But let's go ahead and shrink PJ and enlarge the ball for the sake of the example here. Now, notice the lines are still curving downward and away in all directions, even though he's getting smaller and the ball is getting bigger. This never changes with scale. Okay, now let's zoom into tiny PJ on the massive ball here and consider the curvature word problem that was brought up by this individual serving in Iraq. If PJ, who is 6 feet tall, and he had a clone, who's also 6 feet tall, right, who walked 1 mile away from him, the ground his clone would be standing on would be 8 inches lower than the ground that he was standing on, right? Again, the curvature math is 8 inches per mile squared. So the first mile, 1 times 1 is 1 times 8 is 8 inches. So the ground from point A to point B is going to be 8 inches below. Right, you with me so far? Now, if the clone had a clone who walked another mile away, that clone's ground would be 32 inches below PJ's ground. Why? Because it's 8 inches per mile squared. 2 miles, okay, 2 times 2 is 4, times 8 is 32. So the ground that clone number 2 is standing on is 32, almost 3 feet below the ground that PJ is standing on. And if we had yet another clone who was to walk 1 more mile, his ground would be 72 inches or 6 feet below PJ's. Thus, the top of clone number 3's head would be even with the bottom of PJ's feet. I know for some of you the gerbil just jumped off the wheel, so let's look at it again. This time we'll check it out from a different angle. Again, PJ's clone walks 1 mile away. The top of his head would be the ground clone number 3 is standing on is 6 feet below PJ's. Thus, the top of clone number 3's head is going to be even with the bottom of PJ's feet. Now, I'm not trying to see whether or not the person can see the other person. What I'm trying to show you is the issue of the ground level. The ground level is the issue that I'm focused on with this example. Because if clone number 3's ground is 72 inches below the ground that PJ is standing on, it's going to be physically impossible for PJ to look straight ahead or to the left or the right or behind him and ever expect to see the horizon at his eye level. It cannot be done. I'm going to say it again. If you're just looking straight ahead, there is no way the horizon could ever be at your eye level. When the ground you're standing on is immediately beginning to recede away from you in every direction, you're standing on a point on a ball, supposedly. The ground you're standing on immediately begins to recede away in every direction 8 inches per mile squared. Now, I understand we're not on a perfect beach ball, but you actually compound the problem if you start using the argument, well, there are, peaks and valleys and hills and mountains and plateaus and canyons and blah, blah, blah. All you're doing is pushing the problem further out. And eventually you, the ball earther who uses this argument, are the one who's in danger of falling off the edge of something. Because you can extend that out only so far, and then you're going to have to correct the terrain back to that 8 inches per mile squared so that you can have your 25,000 mile circumference ball. Or pair if you choose to go by Neil deGrasse Tyson. But for this math to be true, and it has to be in order to maintain a 25,000 mile circumference, no person could ever look straight ahead and expect to see the horizon at his eye level.